It lays the predicate and the foundation for the development of a weather satellite that will permit man to determine the world's cloud layer and ultimately to control the weather, and he who controls the weather will control the world.
The social costs of solar geoengineering management. That's a new science report from nature.com. The report states this. In this essay, we argue that the all things considered price of solar radiation management, SRM, is much higher than its modest technical costs would indicate. First, we estimate that stratospheric aerosol injection, that's SAI, will generate between 0 and 809 billion annually in side effect harms, while the number is likely to be considerably higher for marine cloud brightening, that's MCB. Second, SRM would depend on unprecedented international cooperation and therefore risk global instability. Too late, already there. Final excerpt from this report. Politicians may hesitate to support SRM since they may be held politically accountable for, quote, everyday bad weather as well as extreme weather. First, there is no more everyday bad weather as if it's just nature. There's no natural anything anymore. The entire global climate cycle and system has been completely derailed and disrupted by countless forms of human activity, with climate engineering being at the absolute top of the list. So there you have it. The so-called climate science community continues to play the part of cowards and liars, pretending that climate engineering operations, aka weather warfare, are just a dangerous proposal and not an ongoing, ever more lethal reality for the last 80 plus years, continuously being ramped up during this entire span of time. Yet, the overall denial continues. From the Institute of Sustainability and Environmental Professionals, solar geoengineering could cause widespread crop failure. Plans to cool the planet by reflecting sunlight back into space would be just as damaging to crop production as extreme heat caused by climate change, the University of California, Berkeley has found. Research shows, they say, that any improvements in yield caused by cooler temperatures would be canceled out by lower productivity due to reduced sunlight. This has important implications for understanding the effect of solar geoengineering, a method proposed to help humanity manage the impacts of global warming. The side effect treatment appear to be as bad as the illness, study lead author Jonathan Proctor stated. So what don't they mention? Oh yeah, the 40 to 60 million tons of highly toxic soil sterilizing fallout from climate engineering operations, also affecting every single breath we take. So how's it working out after 80 years of covert weather warfare? Take the time to investigate the countless daily climate catastrophes around the world. You won't believe what you find, and you'll have your answer. But wait, what about the so-called global greening narrative? The narrative that our superheating CO2 and methane-saturated world is getting greener overall. Here's the answer. That narrative is a shockingly blatant and very verifiable lie. Forests around the world are dying by the day. They are no longer respirating. They're expelling more carbon than they absorb. They are producing a fraction of the oxygen they once did. The same story with the largest oxygen producer on the planet, plankton. 90% decline in the Atlantic. Published science study. So about the greening, only the completely unsustainable, chemical-laden agriculture, watered with rapidly depleting aquifers and ever more contaminated water, there's your greening. Deserts watered with what's left of the groundwater, forest dying. And of course, there is Earth's disappearing ice deposits. And if something grows on the newly exposed dirt, hooray, global greening, while the planet continues to incinerate and die, with climate engineering further fueling all of it. From the irishtimes.com, more Pollyanna fantasy and reality denial. Here's the headline: could bouncing the sun's heat back into space help solve the climate crisis? As global temperatures climb, they say, and extreme weather events become more frequent, scientists are exploring the use of geoengineering. Right, just exploring what has been raging in our skies for decades. From Copernicus.org, these are all new headlines. More and more every week, the elephant in the sky is becoming ever more hard to hide. From Copernicus.org, the interaction of solar radiation modification with Earth system tipping elements. This is a dire part of the puzzle which I have sounded the alarm about for so many years. From the report, the avoidance of hitting tipping points, feedback loops, has been invoked a significant benefit of solar radiation modification techniques. They claim couldn't be further from the truth. However, they say the physical science underpinning this has thus far not been comprehensively assessed. Correction. For the record, the rapidly worsening catastrophes and already crossed tipping points linked to over 80 years of geoengineering operations haven't even been admitted to, let alone assessed. The report continues. This review assesses the available evidence for the interaction of solar radiation management with a number of Earth system tipping elements in the cryosphere, the oceans, the atmosphere, and the biosphere, with a particular focus on the impact of stratospheric aerosol injection, aka geoengineering jet spraying dispersions in our skies of toxic elements, exactly what you have seen for so many years. They then say we review the scant available literature directly addressing the interaction of SRM with the tipping elements or closely related proxies to these elements. However, given how limited this evidence is, we also give a first-order indication of the impact of SRM on the tipping elements by assessing the impact of SRM on other drivers. Summary. Long-form avoidance and denial of ongoing weather warfare operations all over the world. Speaking of which, from so-called AccuWeather, becoming scheduled weather warfare for the U.S. Here's the headline, Fall Forecast 2025, warmth to fuel fires and hurricanes before cold air chills U.S. They say the start of autumn may feel like an extension of summer across most of the United States, but colder and snowier weather is in the forecast. Here's what you can expect in your area this fall. Question, is it just me, or do others feel that any so-called weather expert that obediently reads his scheduled weather climate engineering cover-up script for the controllers in exchange for a paycheck and pension is in fact an accomplice in the criminal climate engineering cover-up? Once climate engineering is fully exposed, should lying so-called experts be put on trial and held legally and morally accountable? You decide. The AccuWeather report then states, the wildfire threat will be elevated across the West through the first half of autumn, particularly in California, the Rockies, and Northwest. Wind events may spark large fires in central and southern California as early as September. Too late, already happening. While lightning from moisture-starved thunderstorms, geoengineering moisture-starved, they should have said, could ignite fires further north. Ionized atmosphere, more dry lightning. Electrically conductive climate engineering nanoparticles saturating the atmosphere, making it more electrically conductive. For the record, there is nothing natural about any of this. Climate engineering operations are inseparable from all of it. Search this title and review this report. Please. Engineered drought catastrophe target California. I gave this live presentation over a decade ago. It is even more accurate now and more relevant than it was then. Search the engineering drought section on the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org and the engineering wildfires section. Knowledge is power. Credible data from a credible source. That's the only way to move this fight forward. AccuWeather then states there are at least 741 firestorms currently burning in Canada, 304 being totally out of control. A whopping 16.5 million acres burned so far this year, which is an area larger than West Virginia. 2025 is on pace to be the second worst fire season on record in Canada, only behind 2023. How much burned in 2023? About 72,000 square miles, an area larger than the states of Florida or Georgia. Firestorms that were not an accident of nature. Please search and view and share this critically important report. Wildfires serve geoengineering agenda, one of our most important. Next, more harbingers of ionosphere heater-induced scenarios from the San Francisco Chronicle. Record-breaking temperatures could hit parts of California as heat returns. Stop. No, not could, not may, not might. Will and have been. It's like living in hell here. This headline reminder of last year's record temperatures in Northern California. October heat shatters daily monthly records in Northern California. How high in October? 108 degrees. Think about that. Last year in October, 108 degrees in Northern California. As I've stated before, the now 6-month-long summers in the formerly lush forest on the east side of Lake Shasta, where I live off-grid, is like existing in hell. Scorching UV radiation due to the geoengineering damaged ozone layer. Fires, we just had the green fire near my boundaries, scorching some of my most treasured cathedrals in the forest, the gray rocks, super low humidity, drying out the forest, super hot, doesn't cool down at night, like 95 degrees at midnight at times in my location. Almost no natural clouds, just filth-filled skies that are at best silvery white on the best days. More and more dying trees, yet almost none take notice. Scripted political theater on Matrix Media is more interesting for far too many. Anyway, who needs a living planet? Who needs edible food or drinkable water and breathable air, right? We always have McDonald's and Walmart. Everything will magically work out if we just think happy thoughts. For the record, what is it that biblical scripture says about this type of scenario? Before you knew, your sins were washed away. Now that you know, your sins remain. We're not allowed to sit the bench once we know, but how many are? Quick reminder, devastating drought and deadly deluge, the hallmarks of climate engineering operations. Also from AccuWeather, Southeast faces dangerous flash flooding as heavy rain returns. Yes, more eastern U.S. deluge, while the western U.S. can't get a drop. The moisture will be chemically nucleated, extreme hail likely in places, flash cool down, the result. Search Engineering Winter on the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org to learn more. Here's an update on the air we're breathing from people.com, aka People Magazine. Bird flu may now be airborne, scientists say. Scientists say the virus may now be spreading on dairy farms through the air and contaminated wastewater. Researchers found that the virus was detected in the water used to clean the milking parlors and equipment, likely many more places as well now. There were also infected cattle, they say, that reportedly didn't have any visible symptoms, which suggests that the virus could be spreading from seemingly healthy cattle. What do people think the hundreds of biolabs around the planet are doing? And why aren't more concerned? And why aren't more connecting the dots that we're already being sprayed from above with countless toxic elements, including polymer fibers and graphene, both of which are used militarily for biological carrier platforms, aka to carry a pathogen from the clouds to the ground? Do these dots all connect? It would sure seem so. From USA Today, bye-bye butterflies. Insects are in precipitous decline in Midwest. No, not just in the Midwest, all over the world. Geoengineeringwatch.org first sounded the alarm on the collapsing insect populations in 2012. From the UK Guardian, world in 1.5 trillion plastics crisis, hitting health from infancy to old age, report warns. Plastic production has increased more than 200 times since 1950 and hits health at every stage from extraction to disposal, says review in The Lancet. Plastics are a grave, growing and under-recognized danger to human and planetary health. This is an ongoing story, cover it most weeks. A new expert review has warned the world is in a plastics crisis, it concluded, which is causing disease and death from infancy to old age and is responsible for at least 1.5 trillion a year in health-related damages. Stop. For the record, it isn't just plastic trash decomposition. Polymer nanoparticles are a component of climate engineering. This contamination is now ubiquitous on planet Earth. Every bite of food, every drink of water, every breath we take. Moving on from to smog. Quote, extreme weather events are the new front line of online climate denial. This one's a jewel. Listen to this. Social media posts by conspiracy theorist Alex Jones received 408 million views, more than emergency services and mainstream media combined. Good for you, Alex. And thank you, Alex, for covering climate engineering with me on so many occasions over so many years. The Smog Report continues. Climate science deniers are flooding social media with false claims during extreme weather events, drowning out reliable information and putting lives at risk. By Adam Barnett, B-A-R-N-E-T-T. Take note of that name and perhaps consider sending Adam Barnett a link to the dimming, openly CCing as many aware and awake anti-climate engineering activists in the email could also help, just so that Adam knows many are listening and awaiting his reply. Here's mine. Adam, who's flooding media with completely false claims of climate engineering denial? You, Adam. You. And yes, I do agree with you on one point. Lives are at risk. The climate engineering cover-up is core to that equation. Do the right thing, Adam. Tell the whole truth. On last week's broadcast, I quoted Zygmunt Brzezinski, who specifically mentioned the drought, deluge, weather warfare weapons of the controllers, aka geoengineering. Control the rain, control the food supplies, control populations. With that in mind, from phys.org, as the Colorado River slowly dries up, states angle for influence over future water rights. The only rights they're going to have is over dust soon. This unfolding catastrophe is just getting started. Some 40 million Americans depend on the dwindling flow of the Colorado River, while the climate engineers continue to cut off the flow of precipitation from the entire Southwest, again, while deluging the southern and eastern U.S. Moving on, more on the devastating drought and the firestorms that come with it. From AccuWeather, explosive wildfires tear through the West as megafires emerge. From that report, wildfires are tearing across the West, fueled by extreme heat, dry vegetation, and gusty winds. California and Arizona are facing megafires, with crews racing to contain fast-moving flames and protect threatened communities. Again, please search and review. Wildfires serve geoengineering agenda, one of our most important short video reports. There is so much more to the firestorms that Matrix Media and their controllers don't want the public awakened to. From Earth.com, Earth's natural carbon sink nearly collapsed in 2024. The report then states, for decades, the world's forests, grasslands, and wetlands have quietly and consistently absorbed roughly 1/3 of the carbon dioxide that people pour into the sky. That safety net is fraying, and the latest numbers suggest it could be tearing faster than most climate models even imagined. Preliminary satellite and atmospheric data show that in 2024, the terrestrial carbon sink offset almost zero of humanity's emissions, while atmospheric CO2 leapt by a record nearly 4 parts per million. It's well over 50% higher than it's been for an incredibly long span of time. And that's directly a result of human activities, including climate engineering. How quickly a system long seen as resilient, the report says, has moved into the danger zone. There it is again. Quote, everything is way worse than we thought and happening far faster than we imagined. Exactly as I have tried to sound the alarm about for over a decade and a half. And even with this admission from the so-called experts, still not a word about the geoengineering elephant in the equation. Across the pond from AccuWeather, largest wildfire in decades burns French homes. From Reuters, same narrative. France battles largest wildfire in decades. And about the in decades statement in this narrative, all of Matrix Media wants populations to believe that no matter how horrific and unprecedented the disaster, it has all happened before, even if it hasn't. Update on the imploding air conditioners of the planet. This is more grave than most can imagine. From grist.org. This is an ongoing and worsening by the week scenario. Troubling scenes from an Arctic and full tilt crisis. Translation, full-blown meltdown. We are perilously close to what is called a blue ocean event, the complete collapse of summer Arctic sea ice, at which time far worse scenarios will be triggered. From the dailyclimate.org, Svalbard permafrost thaw unleashes methane and speeds Arctic warming. How many times over how many years have I tried to warn about this coming scenario? The report continues. Scientists working on Norway's Svalbard archipelago found thawed permafrost and active methane spewing microbes during what should have been the depths of winter. Svalbard's shock thaw offers a glimpse of a future in which feedback loops, once theoretical, move into real time. It's now. That time is now. They've long since kicked in the front door. Please search Siberian methane craters. Look at those images. It looks like nuclear bomb explosions on Arctic tundra. It's happening on the seafloor on a scale many times larger. That methane's migrating into the atmosphere and covering the planet like a layer of glass. Those that don't believe it will soon. And climate engineering, the attempt to mask what's unfolding, is further fueling this process, further fueling the fire. Next, this from the bottom of the world, from MSN, the Doomsday Glacier, another ongoing story, new article getting worse by the day, is cracking apart. Scientists warn of potential global catastrophe. This colossal glacier, the report states, in West Antarctica has the power to raise global sea levels by up to 11 feet if it collapses entirely. Scientists have been closely monitoring its fractures, which could accelerate the glacier's flow into the ocean with dire consequences for coastal cities around the world. Stop. No, not could, not may, not might, will. Wait and see. The MSN report then states, this glacier has been losing approximately 136 billion tons of ice annually, and if its ice shelf, currently acting as a stopper, is compromised, the glacier could begin to melt at an accelerated rate. Not could, may, might, will. The consequences would be catastrophic for sea level rise, potentially flooding low-lying areas, again, around the globe. Let's correct that last statement, not potentially, definitely. Next, a parallel report. ScienceFocus.com, this doomsday glacier is melting faster than anyone thought. Now Earth's biggest cities are in danger. That's from BBC Science Focus, by the way. There it is again. Quote, melting faster than anyone thought, end quote. I knew. I've been warning about this for so many years. If I knew, they, the controllers, the money printers, certainly knew. Thus, the bunkers they've been preparing for decades, the DUMBs, deep underground military bases, and the $100 million bunkers of people like Zuckerberg in Hawaii. Moving on. From the UK Guardian, Nordic countries hit by truly unprecedented heat wave. Scientists record longest streak of temperatures higher than 30 degrees C. That's 90-something degrees in regions that go, and records that go back to 1961. Cold Nordic countries are being seared by truly unprecedented heat as hot weather strengthened and lengthened by carbon pollution and methane and climate engineering continues to roast Northern Europe. A weather station in the Norwegian part of the Arctic Circle recorded temperatures above 30 C. That's actually, in retrospect, I think just below 90 degrees, but for 13 consecutive days. The report finishes with this. Finland has had 3 straight weeks of 30 C plus degree heat. That's, again, just close to 90. Truly unprecedented heat wave still in full swing with maximums today of 33 degrees C. That is pushing well into the 90s. Footnote, global climate engineering operations are making every single scenario mentioned far worse overall, not better. There is absolutely no benevolence in geoengineering anything. None. Zero. From geographical.co, huge hidden flood bursts through Greenland ice sheet surface. A huge flood triggered by the rapid draining of a lake beneath Greenland's ice sheet occurred with such force that it fractured ice and burst out across the entire ice surface. Models do not include the event in their predictions of the future evolution of the Greenland ice sheet. There it is another time. The so-called scientists and their models just couldn't figure it out. From the Japan Times, Japan swelters as previous heat records melt. Ongoing story, still getting worse. From Politico.com, Japan sets new temperature records for second time in a week. And this from ABC News, Japan sets 2 heat records in 1 day as mercury soars past 107 degrees. Stop and think about that. 107 in Japan, that's an actual ambient temperature, not a heat index, which was most certainly higher still on the island nation. But so far, that data is being suppressed. From BBC, the world is getting hotter. This is what it's doing to our brains. From that report, a hotter world is also harming the neurodevelopment of the very youngest. The report continues, there is a link between extreme heat and bad pregnancy outcomes such as premature birth. Also a link between the plethora of toxic airborne nanoparticles and the same medical outcome. Moving on, how dark is the wider horizon? From MSN, the 5 million year heat wave that followed Earth's deadliest extinction. Here's what triggered it. From the report, for decades, researchers believed the heat was the lingering effect of volcanic activity. However, fossil fuel evidence uncovered by an international team of scientists has now revealed that the true cause of the persistent heat wave was the collapse of tropical forests. This loss of vegetation, critical for capturing and storing carbon, further exacerbated the already intense warming, resulting in what is now described as a global super greenhouse climate. We're on track for Venus syndrome. Plug that into the equation. Far worse because it's happening far faster. But don't worry. The controllers will be sure to keep AI going, even if it takes putting dilapidated nuclear power plants back online and using the last drops of water. From techgamers.com. AI data centers in Texas used 463 million gallons of water. Residents told to take shorter showers. The report continues. Some water utilities only find out about a data center's plans after construction is well underway. In some cases, companies operate under shell entities or code names, limiting community awareness and input. Welcome to the orbiting asylum. Pedal to the metal until the moment of impact, which draws perilously near. More bad air, not an accident of nature either. From the UK Guardian, Canada wildfires, 81 million Americans under air quality alerts as blazes rage. Another ongoing story all summer long. Now it's the norm. Hundreds of fires across Canada and parts of the U.S. prompt alerts in 14 states from the Great Lakes region to the Northeast. A high-pressure system, listen to this, parked over the Midwest is trapping the smoke in place, causing air quality issues to linger for days. And directly over the smoke canopies, aerosol dispersions. We have filmed this at geoengineeringwatch.org. Watch the documentary, The Dimming. We filmed blanket aerosol spraying operations directly over the smoke canopy for the Paradise Fire. And as I've mentioned so many times on this broadcast, and as they confirm here from the UK Guardian, high pressure system parked over the Midwest, trapping the smoke in place, pushing it down on the populations. This is an ionosphere heater induced high pressure heat dome, causes the atmosphere to expand up and down, and they can push that smoke down on the surface and hold it there for as long as they want and spray whatever they want on top of that. Keep that in mind. From space.com, Earth's continents are drying out at an unprecedented rate, satellite data reveals. Can't happen this way based on the laws of physics with a rapidly warming planet. The planet is in total meltdown. If there's more drought than deluge, there's a factor we're not being told about. That factor is climate engineering. Atmosphere holds 7% more moisture for every degree C of warming. We are likely past 3.5 C now. Climate engineering, drying out mass regions, causing deluge elsewhere. The report says mega drying regions have emerged across the northern hemisphere, with the worst hit areas extending across the western coast of North America. Engineered drought catastrophe target California. Please, mentioned it earlier, look it up, view it. The report continues, 75% of the world's population now lives in areas suffering from freshwater loss with repercussions on agriculture, sanitation, and climate change resilience. There's no resilience on a dead planet. The trend is also likely to cause further desertification of areas already suffering from insufficient rainfall. Of course it will. Researchers said that the loss of continental water is now contributing to more global sea level rise than the melting of ice sheets. How about that? Because they're not letting it rain over land. Yes, there's deluges in places, but far more devastating droughts. From AccuWeather, this city could run dry within weeks as it grapples with an acute water crisis. Tehran, home to around 10 million people, could run out of water altogether if consumption levels are not reduced. We're talking about day zero within weeks. Keep in mind, who was targeted immediately after 9/11 with once-in-a-thousand-year droughts and been targeted ever since? Iran and several other countries in the Middle East that Western powers want to exploit and decimate. Not nature. Climate engineering. And don't forget the heat index temperatures recently recorded in the Persian Gulf region of Iran, 133 degrees at 1 o'clock in the morning. And a recently recorded heat index, daytime heat index of 182, still being confirmed, but it's in that range. What does that equate to? That's about 110 plus degrees with humidity near 90%. That combination has not previously existed on planet Earth. We are in uncharted territory. Heat index temperature coming to a neighborhood near you. From MSN, Miami is sinking and sea levels are rising faster than we thought. The report then adds this: sea levels are rising faster than anyone expected. The report then adds this: scientists say the city's survival depends on bold action, but time is running out. No, Miami's already on borrowed time. There's no stopping what's coming. And yes, one more time, quote, faster than anyone expected. Correction, than anyone was willing to admit to, but geoengineeringwatch.org did. We have been sounding the alarm on this exact scenario for over a decade and a half. Myself personally, longer than that. Next, from theconversation.com, flames to floods, how Europe's devastating wildfires are fueling its next climate crisis. The fires themselves, the report says, are bad enough, but they're also closely connected to other climate-related extremes, including floods. They continue, natural hazards often trigger chain reactions, turning one disaster into many. And in the case of floods, wildfires play a big role both through weather patterns and how the land responds to rain. Let's stop there. What has this report completely and totally omitted? Climate disruption operations. which are also inseparable from the cascading climate catastrophes that are taking place around the world on a daily basis. Question: should all those in media that are contributing to the criminal cover-up of climate engineering be held legally and morally accountable by justifiably enraged populations once they fully awaken to what's been done to them without their knowledge or their consent? You decide. You're listening to the weekly installment of Global Alert News, the Bad News Broadcast, installment number 522, August 9th, 2025. This is Dane Wigington, your host. Global Alert News is brought to you by Geoengineeringwatch.org, the largest and most visited website in the world on the subject of climate intervention operations known as geoengineering. Global Alert News is aired on a number of AM and FM stations around the country. If any radio station near you is willing to air the GAN broadcast in order to inform their listeners of what Matrix Media won't mention, have them contact us at admin@geoengineeringwatch.org. We'll grant them access to our weekly broadcast for free, of course. Recordings of the commercial-free, non-political Global Alert News Hour can be found on the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org under the recent column and on the Dane Wigington YouTube channel. If you're on our email list, please put us on your email contact book so that our mailouts don't go to the spam files. Please help us to share the groundbreaking documentary, The Dimming, which fully exposes the climate engineering atrocities. Closing in on 27 million views, I believe. The best way to share is by circulating the direct link to The Dimming by email directly from the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org. Sharing directly helps us to overcome social media censorship. When viewing our YouTube of The Dimming or Global Alert News or any other Geoengineering Watch video on YouTube, please subscribe, share, and comment, all of which helps us to circulate critically important data to a much wider audience. How do we reach those that still aren't looking up, even now? Start the conversation with Geoengineering Watch awareness-raising materials, which can be found on our homepage. Our only goal: provide activists what they need to move this fight forward. Extremely high-quality printed materials, shocking images, pictures worth 1,000 words, as the proverb goes. We have Geoengineering Watch hoodies, shirts, including new blue shirts. Photos are on our homepage. We have scannable business cards and bumper stickers, all effective tools to help strike up a conversation on the climate engineering issue. Again, every week, I will repeat this: reaching a critical mass of awareness on the climate engineering onslaught is the only way forward in this fight. If we can expose it, we can stop it from the inside out. We must awaken our military brothers and sisters and hope and pray that they stand down and stop participating in their own demise. As always, I want to express my deepest and most profound gratitude to all those that are steadfastly committed to exposing and halting the climate engineering insanity. You have my deepest gratitude, always. More headlines in a moment. Please forgive me, after 20 years of nonstop marching in this battle, expending my personal resources for so much of the journey, I feel it is necessary to state a few facts for the record. There's no YouTube commercials on Geoengineering Watch, anything. Many online platforms have now jumped on the climate engineering issue, but how many are actually doing so for the sake of the cause? How many are doing so as a way to pander for contributions related to an issue they know nothing about except what they have heard online? No testing, no research of their own. The latest narrative from the climate engineering cover-up disinformation sources is this. Listen carefully, here it is. Quote, all the grid patterns, X's, ovals, start-stop trails, transponders turned off, sky covering trails is all just commercial jet exhaust. The disinformation sources then claim that actual climate engineering operations are completely invisible. Does that make any sense at all? These narratives are coming from the very same disinformation con artists that initially pandered for your money, collected tens of thousands, saying it was to take legal action against climate engineering, which they then said and now say, oops, it isn't actually happening. Did they give back the donations they collected that they claimed would be used to stop climate engineering, which they now deny is even taking place? Don't think so. This source, one particular source, even used Geoengineering Watch images and our logo to make it look like they were us. Many donated their money to this scam and understandably became justifiably unhappy about the whole apparent con scheme. And now, as I just mentioned, their latest narrative is that geoengineering is actually totally invisible. Such sources will continue to pander for your money in spite of whatever they claim. Bet on it. Please keep your sense of reason on high alert, now more than ever. Which source is doing everything in their power to keep moving the fight forward? Which source is the only source that has conducted extensive surface and atmospheric testing on film and on the record in the Dimming documentary, posted free to the world the day it was done? Who is the only source that has ever taken a climate engineering disinformation puppet to court? Geoengineeringwatch.org. Search Dane Wigington, Dr. Douglas McMartin, Bloomberg News. Bloomberg covered our legal action. Which source has never changed our data and lab testing based compass setting for the entire length of our existence while never once pandering for donations, ever? What we are seeing in our skies isn't just jet exhaust. And no, geoengineering operations are not some invisible spraying operations that no one can see. Such narratives are beyond mind-numbingly moronic. So when specific sources continue to push regurgitated official denial babble that it's only jet exhaust and not sprayed geoengineering jet dispersions, please believe your own eyes, believe your own sense of reason after doing your own objective research. Geoengineeringwatch.org will continue to do everything in our power to be the go-to credible source on this issue. So much proof is available for free in our groundbreaking climate engineering expose documentary, The Dimming. Check the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org. Moving on. How is the criminal cabal money printing cartel masquerading as the legitimate government of the U.S. doing everything in their power to hide weather warfare in plain sight? No pun intended. And I am referring to both scripted factions of the banker-controlled Uniparty of America. This is not a political issue. By denying, tearing down, and or deleting everything that has anything to do with climate and weather, aka data sources, and even deleting satellites. On that note from CNN, the U.S. government has declared war on the very idea of climate change, which again is a step for them trying to hide climate intervention operations until the moment of impact. From MSN, this: White House orders NASA to deliberately destroy 2 important satellites monitoring climate change. It is currently unclear, the report says, why the Trump administration seeks to destroy the satellites as they are state of the art, because they don't want data sets that can further expose the weather warfare operations. That's the bottom line. From foreignpolicy.com, Trump administration is making climate change denialism federal policy, which, for the record, in the case of climate engineering operations, has always been federal policy. Total denial, continuing to this day. Just jet exhaust or just condensation, they say. So much for the administration appointees that promised to address the geoengineering issue. Also, for the record, you don't get to join the big club, as Carlin called it, without being a conforming member of the increasingly fascist cartel. Both political stripes. The most dire threats will never be honestly addressed by any of them. The foreignpolicy.com report then states, even as the world reels from record temperatures, the U.S. leader is spreading misinformation. Trump has claimed that climate change is, quote, a hoax. Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins rejected it as crud. In May, Lee Zeldin, the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency, has dismissed what he has referred to as the climate change religion, all of them attempting to hide climate engineering. You'll never hear them mention that. On August 4th, Energy Secretary Chris Wright was the latest to report such claims. The ceaseless repeating from the media, politicians, and activists claiming that climate change is making weather more dangerous and severe is just nonsense, he said. I watched him say it on CNN. He said climate change just isn't true. In some senses, I would have to agree with him, because it's not just, quote, climate change. What we face is more scientifically termed an abrupt climate collapse, with climate engineering further fueling the process by the day. The report continues, Zeldin has hailed the proposed move as the largest deregulatory action in the history of America. There are people who, in the name of climate change, are willing to bankrupt the country, Zeldin said in a podcast interview. They created this endangerment finding, and then they are able to put all these regulations on vehicles and airplanes and stationary sources to basically regulate out of existence, in many cases, a lot of the segments of our economy. These are people that will never, ever admit to climate engineering, because that is a core component of everything they do and everything they are trying to do. By engineering snowstorms along the Gulf Coast in the middle of January while it's raining in the Arctic, above freezing and raining, how many people know about that and how many people care? And for those that are still pushing the counter narratives, thinking somehow they're pushing back against the power structure by pushing global cooling and coming ice age, Look around. Please look around and change your false narrative. How much more blatant does it have to get? The planet's in total meltdown and climate engineering is further fueling the fire. Don't help those in power by pushing their own narratives. Again, those in power are desperately trying to hide climate engineering and climate collapse till the moment of impact. On that note, from the other side of the fence, the far left, this is from Amy Goodman and Democracy Now! Here's the headline. A danger to the entire planet amid deadly extreme weather, Trump's EPA rejects climate science. That's true, and they're also trying to hide climate engineering exactly like Amy Goodman and Democracy Now! Is also doing. I've met Amy Goodman twice. It was unpleasant both times. She was condescending and evasive. And when I asked Amy why she was not addressing climate engineering and 9/11, I asked about both issues. She said, well, at least I'm telling most of the truth. My response, Amy, there's no such thing as most of the truth. There's either the whole truth or something other than the truth. And for the record, Amy Goodman receives money from the Ford Foundation, or at least she did then. No more invested in the truth than the other side of the fence. All two wings of the same bird, ultimately. All avoiding the oncoming train of total collapse of everything, everywhere, all at once. All pushing deception in one form or another. Here's a new article from the UK Guardian. Scientists decree Trump energy chief's plan to update climate reports. Exactly what Stalin did. They're literally altering reality and history in every way they want. Not just about Epstein, about everything else. And that doesn't mean that the Bidens and the Obamas and the Clintons and all of them haven't been involved in one way or the other. They're all criminals. All of them. The last U.S. president to draw a line in the sand, to truly draw a line in the sand, with the money printing cartels that run the world was John F. Kennedy, and he lived about a week. Keep that in mind. In regard to the crime syndicate masquerading as the U.S. government, it's truly disturbing, even mind-numbing, how many there are that blindly wave their flags even though they know their government and their government's closest accomplice, so-called ally governments, along with the matrix media they own, are and have always been systematically lying to them about an endless and growing list of issues. Countless historical events, how they took place and why, the reality of climate engineering, the true origins of CV-19, what really happened on 9/11, the dangers of so-called safe and effective medical treatments, the fabricated justifications for wars like the Iraq weapons of mass destruction that never existed, the Vietnam Gulf of Tonkin event that never happened, the Pearl Harbor event that our government knew was coming and made sure it would happen. False flags of every conceivable nature. Our government and its closest accomplice government, so-called allies, actually funding and forcing to action the very militant groups that they then utilized as justifications for the agendas and objectives they have always been driven to carry out, like clearing the land of the original inhabitants. Exactly what happened to the Native Americans, including my Choctaw ancestors. This was but one example. There are countless others continuing to this day in a more blatant and monstrous fashion than ever before. Controller-orchestrated conflict, chaos, and carnage, covered up by an ever more compliant corporate media propaganda machine and supported by too many in the general population that desperately want to be lied to. So again, my point. Far too many Americans continue to feed at the matrix media trough of total propaganda, with Fox News being the worst of all, which is saying a lot because they're all bad. Far too many Americans continue to blindly wave their flags in full support of controller-orchestrated conflict, chaos, and carnage zones, even as they're being systematically attacked by their own government with geoengineering operations from above. Too many Americans continue to passively follow pastors that hide behind their pulpits, towing the line for the same criminal cabal masquerading as a legitimate government. State-sponsored mafia that controls the nonprofit status of the self-proclaimed spiritual leaders who almost without exception do nothing more than parrot controller narratives. Narratives that completely omit or deny climate engineering, and narratives that attempt to justify controller-orchestrated conflicts, chaos, and carnage around the world. How many have taken notice that there all too often seems to be an attention-diverting mass shooting event every time the news cycle becomes too damning for the criminal controllers? Just a coincidence, right? The powers that shouldn't be have one motive: to maintain their control at any cost to anyone, anywhere, even if they feel they need to decimate the web of life and countless populations to accomplish their agenda. Keep that in mind, always. The bottom line to all of it will soon be a dead planet if we remain on the current course. On that note, this new headline from USA Today: The Great Dying. Mass extinction was a warning from the trees, study says. How many times on this broadcast have I stated, if the trees die, we die? Simple. From MSN, experts advocate for a multifaceted approach to combat the looming specter of extinction. As humanity stands at a crossroads, the potential for a sixth mass extinction is not just a distant threat on the horizon. It's a reality we are navigating right now. Yes, it is. They say the consequences of a potential sixth mass extinction are dire. Wait, are we navigating it now, or is it a potential? They can't make up their mind. No, we're neck deep in it right now. Neck deep in the sixth mass extinction, happening far faster than any previous paleo event, which makes it far worse. From yahoo.com, scientists raise red flags about concerning phenomena causing sharks to move closer to shore. This report is a corroboration of what I've tried to warn about so many times. Bear with me. Report states sharks are moving to shorelines as oxygen amounts fall in deeper waters. What's happening? Question mark. Pollution and warmer waters have reduced oxygen in the sea's deeper sections, parts below 200 meters. This change pushes sharks toward shallow shore areas where they encounter dangers. These fish need at least 4.5 milligrams of oxygen per liter of seawater to stay alive, but many areas now have less than 2 milligrams per liter. Due to continued deoxygenation in deep waters, these fish can't return, but they also can't thrive in their new coastal environments. The issue is bigger than just sharks. Low oxygen creates, quote, dead zones where most marine animals can't survive. This harms fishing jobs and food sources. Again, it's much, much bigger than that. Canfield Ocean, 500 plus dead zones around the world right now, some of them 10,000 square miles and bigger. 10,000 square miles and bigger. Hypoxic, anoxic zones, low and no oxygen. Please search Canfield Ocean. That is the course we are on. Oceans die, we die. From the UK Independent, blue whales have gone silent. Why that has scientists worried about Earth's biggest animals and the ocean. Of course, that should worry any rational human being. Food chains in the ocean are collapsing. Oceans are superheating, again, deoxygenating. We have intense UV bombarding the surface. It's killing plankton. The walls are closing in from every side. From Vice.com, nuclear war would kill crops and collapse civilization in just a few months. I covered another article about nuclear catastrophe last week. Here's what this one says. If anybody's going to survive longer than a couple of years in a post-nuclear winter wasteland, they're going to have to farm. They then say, add the extra UVB radiation from ozone layer annihilation, and we're staring down the barrel of an 87% loss. Guess what? Don't need the nuclear war. The ozone layer is already collapsing. We are on the cusp of functional ozone layer collapse right now. If there's any nuclear exchange, there will be nothing left. Game over. That's simple. And we have Vice.com pretending that we could just farm a bit. Maybe we'd be okay. For the record, I did an interview with Vice CEO Shane Smith. Search it. Look it up. He cut 2/3 of the interview out because it was clear during the exchange that I knew much more about climate everything than he did. Perhaps he didn't want that to be seen. He tried to make it look like he was debunking the climate engineering. I don't think he accomplished his task. My data was solid, inarguable, and that is apparent in what he did post. Vice.com. Again, for the record, the U.S. is the only country to use nuclear bombs, let alone on civilian cities. And no, it wasn't necessary. And no, it didn't save lives. It took them, hundreds of thousands of them. And now, circles in D.C., again, are openly discussing using nukes to cool the planet. If they do, on any scale, game over. Next, from UK Guardian, self-termination is most likely. Yes, we are indeed rapidly exterminating ourselves from countless directions, with climate disruption operations at the top of the list. The rest of the headline, The History and Future of Societal Collapse. From the report, an epic analysis of 5,000 years of civilization argues that global collapse is coming unless inequality is vanquished. This is about defiance. The report says it's about doing the right thing, fighting for democracy. Let's stop there. Question: is fighting for the so far orchestrated illusion of democracy, wrapped in political theater, a greater priority than fighting to preserve life itself on Earth, literally? More important than stopping the contamination of our skies and every breath we take with highly toxic climate engineering fallout? How many are now resorting to eyes wide shut, false perceptions as a psychological defense mechanism? Commentary like, no more spraying. The spraying has stopped. My skies are clear since the election. I've seen these types of comments. They've been sent to us at geoengineeringwatch.org. If only eyes wide shut narratives of hopium like those were true, but they absolutely aren't. Weather warfare continues to be ramped up with each passing day, not scaled back. And next, we're all part of a grand game of chess. Life on Earth is in the balance, literally. Learning to play the game effectively and efficiently is imperative. On that note, chemtrails, wrong term. Okay for private conversation, nothing more. From day one, geoengineeringwatch.org has tried to make clear how counterproductive the chemtrails term is. Anyone unfamiliar with the issue and who searches the term online will find only conspiracy theory and hoax reports. That's it. The chemtrails term is what the controllers want us to parrot. This helps their game, not ours. Those who truly want to help move this fight forward will stick with the science terms, climate engineering, geoengineering, solar radiation management, etc., when dealing with anybody outside of a private conversation. And about the trails, here's what they are. Geoengineering particulate dispersions, sprayed particulate dispersions. And about the willfully ignorant, arrogantly and dogmatically so, here's a recent comment submission example to geoengineeringwatch.org. Quote, so, are the military and all the boogeymen spreading chemtrails immune from the harmful effects? Question mark. Are all the thousands of insurance executives, meteorologists, and scientists missing in action, asleep at the wheel? Question mark. And how on earth has this conspiracy been so secret for so long with so many people involved? Question mark. The commenter continued with this, not one pilot ever speaking out about the conspiracy for the sake of their children or humanity itself? Question mark. Huh? Question mark. Explain, because this defies common sense. Here's my response. First, so-called common sense is anything but common. Power structure programmed eyes wide shut dogmatic denial is all too often the norm. Next, this example, the entire medical industrial complex, with precious few exceptions, continues to push the, quote, safe and effective mantra for highly pushed medical concoctions that have long since been proven to be anything but safe and effective. So in summary, comments of arrogant denial, like the example formerly mentioned, are simply a psychological defense attempt by those that refuse to open their eyes for fear of what they might see. Definition. Human psychology often leads to the denial of existential threats due to a combination of factors including terror management theory and psychic numbing. These psychological mechanisms make it difficult for individuals to fully grasp and act upon threats that are large in scale or involve uncertainty, often leading to avoidance or minimization of perceived dangers. Question. How many seek solace through materialism and consumption? No state of mind that truly matters can be found on such a path. Identity, a sense of permanency, a sense of fulfillment, none of this can be truly and unshakably achieved from external anything. Any attempt to achieve true solace from externals can only eventually lead to deep angst and suffering. Tolle said this, many never realize that there can be no salvation in anything they do, possess, or attain. Those that do realize it often become world-weary and depressed. If nothing can give you true fulfillment, what is there left to strive for? Question mark. What is the point in anything? Question mark. An Old Testament prophet must have arrived at such a realization when he wrote, I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and a striving after the wind. To reach this point is to be one step away from despair, but also one step away from enlightenment and truly unshakable solace, which can only ultimately be found from within. Our God-given sense of honor, reason, virtue, morality. These are our only true possessions. Protecting each is not just an option, it's an absolute obligation. What we collectively face is a real-time fight for life. The walls are closing in from countless directions, including from above, from our skies. Life on Earth is between the hammer and the anvil, aka the clinically insane controllers and the hopelessly asleep at the wheel majority population. If this equation, this course, is not completely and immediately altered sooner than almost any yet dare to imagine, we will reach the end of the road. If and only if there's a collective awakening, a collective willingness to face the gathering storm head on, a collective willingness to act with courage in spite of fear and programmed apathy, we may yet make a profound difference, even at this late hour. Such an effort will take all of us, all those who are determined at their very core to struggle against the fading of the light, all those who refuse to go silently into the night, fully exposing and halting the planet and life-decimating climate disruption operations in our skies is the first and most important leap we could collectively make in the right direction. If this could be accomplished and the planet could be allowed to respond on its own to the damage already done, we could at least buy time, and that's worth fighting for. Check the activist suggestions link on the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org for specific instructions on how you can help to move this fight forward. Make your voice heard. It matters. You matter. All of us matter. Let's make it count while we can. Until next week, this is Dane Wigington from geoengineeringwatch.org.